Welcome to Child Abuse Awareness with Darlene J. Clark.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Child Abuse Awareness with Darlene J. Clark. Be a part of the solution instead of part of the problem. Hey Chris, good to see you. Hello everyone that's here. Please remember to hit the bell icon and the thumbs up. Appreciate every one of y'all. Human trafficking since January is supposed to be Human Trafficking Awareness Month. I figured I would go ahead and let's touch base on this subject a little bit. Let's see. In Matthew 18 verse 6, but whoso shall offend one of these little ones, which believe in me, it were better for him that a millstone were hanged about his neck, and that he were drowned in the depths of the sea. And we're going to go over some of this information, so I want to make sure to put trigger warning, because it's going to go over some people's stories as well when I go to this link. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976, allowances made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that might otherwise be infringing. Non-profit, educational, or personal use tips a balance in favor of fair use. Hey there, right? How you doing? Good to see you. Thanks for coming in. Select this website right here. Let's give them credit where credit is due. It's HT for Human Trafficking LegalCenter.org. Says about us, here's the mission. We are a bridge to justice for trafficking survivors. The Human Trafficking Legal Center connects trafficking survivors with pro bono representation so they can seek justice and thrive. We demand accountability from traffickers, from governments, and from corporations. The vision is the Human Trafficking Legal Center's goal is a complete eradication of forced labor in the United States and around the globe. To that end, we seek system change to combat forced labor and human trafficking. We confront the institutions that allow these abuses to flourish. I get a little tongue-tied. So we got a lot of different information here. They even got sign up for our newsletter, which is pretty interesting. Like December 2025, got the anti-trafficking movement celebrates 25 years of progress. That's December 2025's newsletter. Total damages in civil cases brought under anti-trafficking law surpasses $1 billion. The Human Trafficking Legal Center and partners with forced labor import bans. United Kingdom advocates mark 25th anniversary of UN Trafficking Palermo Protocol. Welcome to Caroline Mazzano, and thank you for the community. So let's go to the next thing. Hey there, Carlene. Good to see you. Hi there, Eric Kitts. Thanks for coming in. So let's get a couple of these people who's got their stories here, right? Because trafficking is not just about the sex trafficking, there's also labor trafficking. I want to make sure y'all can see this here. This is Famous Lebinka. Hope I pronounced that right. She is a survivor, an activist, training advisor, the Human Trafficking Legal Center, board member, Survivor Alliance. Our thoughts and prayers and our thanks and gratitude for you, Miss Fadeness Lavinga. Thank you so much. It takes a lot of courage for what you're doing. Appreciate that. Here's her story now. My mother used to work on the farm all year long and sell things like tomatoes, different vegetables. On Christmas, she would buy me a Coca-Cola. My mother worked hard to make sure I had that because I am the baby in the family. That was very special. During mango season, we would climb the mango trees and get down when we were full, but most days we went to bed on an empty stomach. My dad abandoned us, but we always made it through together. My mother is a strong person. She did whatever she could to protect us, but it was hard. I was sexually molested through family members and raped by strangers in Malawi at a young age. I became a victim of domestic violence just like my mother. Before my 18th birthday, I already gave birth to 3 children. Just being a lost child, unwanted child, I ended up being trafficked to America. When I was trafficked, I was getting 0 to 40 cents an hour. I wasn't fed. I was treated like less than an animal. I slept on the floor in the basement. I was trafficked for 3 years before I escaped. Nobody rescued me. I had to rescue myself. I had to run away from my trafficker by sliding under the little space that was left under the garage door. I was very skinny and malnourished, so I ran for my life and I became homeless. I overcame so much, but not only that, it took me years. It took me to my age to find a voice. Me sharing my story helped to make a change. I had to rescue myself and also had to speak up so people could see me and hear me. My accent doesn't matter. My English doesn't matter. I may not have a degree, but my experience is my degree. You go, girl. The Human Trafficking Legal's mission is to stand for justice. That means they fight for us, they make sure survivors have a voice, they help people like me navigate the legal system. We cannot do anything without lawyers. HT Legal gives survivors free access to pro bono lawyer, so survivors don't have to stress about money. HT Legal helped me to make a civil case so I could sue my trafficker. I won my case against my trafficker, but I still did not get the money. I didn't get my full justice, but I got my justice halfway because I found my voice. I wish I had known how difficult and long this road of fighting for justice would take. In Maryland, there was no forced labor statute. There was no punch in the face. So I used my voice to bring a change. I testified before the Maryland General Assembly, where I helped to pass a labor trafficking bill to become a law. I testified before Congress. The United States created a check-in program for domestic workers, so that way somebody can have information in case they end up in a situation like mine. It's like, wow. So what y'all think about her story? I think she's a very strong woman. She's to be admired. Must have been difficult, everything that she endured, having kids and leaving them behind, being trafficked to America. Okay, I almost did the link. Sorry. Share the screen again. So let's go to Evelyn Chumbo's story. Here's Evelyn Chumbo. She's a survivor, activist, project assistant, Baker McKenzie, board member, Human Trafficking Legal Center, and Free the Slaves. So I was 9 years old when I came to the United States. I was put straight to work, cleaning, cooking. I had to take care of a baby and a toddler. There were times that I wouldn't have anything to eat. My trafficker would beat me. My cousin helped me escape, but she never reported the situation, and she also took advantage of me. So I ran away. I went to a Catholic church and shared my story. Then came to D.C. through Catholic Charities. I met so many different people, Homeland Security investigators, FBI, police officers. I met Martina Vandenberg when she heard me speak and invited me to speak at a conference in London. Later, she asked me to be on the advisory board of HT Legal. I said yes, because of the person Martina is and the work that she does. HT Legal is very important because they provide pro bono lawyers, and so many survivors cannot afford a lawyer. Also, HT Legal focuses on making sure that the survivors are at the forefront and are equal partners. The HT Legal staff cares so deeply and wants survivors to get the justice they deserve. As a survivor, I was not able to trust people. A lot of survivors, their trust was taken away. So trust is everything. The staff and the board at HT Legal were like family. They let me be me and let me feel free to be vulnerable and open. A survivor needs to take time to talk to someone. They need to go to therapy. I don't care where you're from or what are your cultural beliefs about being strong. You have to take this mental health thing seriously and take time to heal. It's been a long journey for me, and the journey still continues. Despite the obstacles, I still know that I came here for a purpose, and that was to get an education. I worked really hard. I got my GED. I went to university. Now I have a son. He is my miracle baby. His name is Malcolm Malema. Malema is a Cameroonian name that means my heart. His father gave him that name, and I named him Malcolm because one of the books that I read when coming out of my trafficking situation was the autobiography of Malcolm X. Sometimes I feel like I'm too hard on my son, but I want him to get a good education, be a great leader, be happy, have the fun childhood that I didn't have. There are times that I don't want to speak, but I think about all the children that are victims of trafficking, and I do it because of them. I did it before because I was that child, but now, because of Malcolm, I can't ever stop speaking. I like to see myself as the president of Cameroon, my home country, because I feel like it's time for a change and time to make Cameroon better. So that's my goal. I think it's really good that she's got a child, and I think she's doing pretty good. Hello, everyone that comes in. Please say a hello. I try to make sure to mention you and thanking you for coming in. So let's get to Cynthia Robertson's story. I think there's only 4 different people to tell their stories, and we'll go into other things. Right here is Cynthia Robertson, partner, Jenner and Block, Washington, D.C., pro bono attorney, the Human Trafficking Legal Center. So I had to make it bigger because of the wording, if y'all could see that. I'm sorry it's so light. I'm in awe of my clients and their strength and how they can overcome so much to come forward and proceed through the whole process, which can be really laborious. One of the most satisfying things is to see them regain not only respect and dignity within themselves, but trust in others. That healing process is wonderful to behold. It's what brings me back time and time again to represent more trafficking survivors. The biggest reward of all is seeing survivors heal through the process of being represented by a lawyer who respects them. who treats them with the dignity that they deserve. Justice comes in many different forms, but I think ultimately justice is when a survivor is restored and feels like they can begin again as a productive and healthy member of our society. HT Legal provides a unified approach to helping a person in whatever ways they need. Legal services, of course, ensuring that they can stay in the United States legally and work if that's what they choose, but also essential social services. HT Legal is a hub of a wheel with many spokes, each of which is a resource for survivors, connecting them with legal counselors, mental health counselors, social services groups. Through communities like HT Legal, they are able to get the help they need and feel empowered by those who have gone through this. They hear their stories and they understand. I'm not alone in this. I can come forward in parts so that no one else goes through this again. That is the motivating driver for so many victims is to protect others. My clients provide me with hope to see their recovery and strength and not just surviving but thriving as they are provided the opportunity to become a productive member of society. It's transformative both for them and for us. I develop close relationships with my clients and we become like family. Their success is my success. It's uplifting to change these people's lives. What could be better? Stopping it as a whole, that would be a lot better. But, okay, so the next story we got is, hope I pronounce her name right, Lorley S. Masters, partner, Hunton Andrews Kurth, Washington, D.C., board chair of the Human Trafficking Legal Center. Okay. It's really important to help eliminate this scourge of human trafficking. Most important is to give survivors a sense of justice and power because people who are trafficked are among the least powerful among us. That's what leads them into these often desperate situations. They're trying to better themselves better than families, and they end up being exploited by traffickers. Well, a bunch of us, just can't help it, but that's her thinking on this, that we try to better ourselves and we end up doing that, but that's not always the case, right? That's just wrong, and the United States should not allow that to happen. The world shouldn't allow it to happen. Let me include that in there too, okay? The people I see are trafficked into the United States, sometimes trafficked within the United States, for the purpose of working for little pay under exploitative conditions, for them to find someone who really believes in them and can help them get back some of their dignity and self esteem. I think there's really nothing more powerful than that. A lot of people don't understand that the vast majority of people who are trafficked to forced labor. That could be somebody that's down the street from where you live. Often the traffickers go free and the victims, the survivors, pay the price. They may be arrested or live in perpetual fear that someone will come after them for speaking the truth. A milestone was the passage of the Trafficking Victims Protection Act, which allows for recovery of damages against traffickers. Sitting down with someone and saying, you can sue. We can get a judgment against these people. That is a concept, a sense of power and possibility that they never considered. They never had the luxury of considering. There's something unique about sitting down with someone face to face, someone who has been terribly hurt and exploited, and supporting them in achieving an independent life. So, what's y'all's take on that? If anybody's got anything they want to say before we go to the next thing, just let me know. So, make sure that the sound, the sound is on. So, there's videos. So, let's go here. So here is the necessity of survivor leadership. Tell me,
Hello, everyone. It's 1 o'clock, and we are starting the Survivor Leadership Series sponsored by the Human Trafficking Legal Center and Survivor Alliance. My name is Martina Vandenberg, and I am temporarily filling in for Roxy Farrow, who's our operations manager who runs the Survivor Leadership Program at the Human Trafficking Legal Center. And before we turn to the main event, which is Deborah Pembroke, who will speak today about the necessity of survivor leadership, I'd like to introduce our co-sponsor, Maria Lozano from the Survivor Alliance, just to say a few words about Survivor Alliance. Maria?
Hello, welcome everyone. We are very pleased to be part of this series of webinar on survivor leadership. Would like to thank you, Deborah, for being the speaker to this morning, evening. Here is evening in the UK. And thank you to the Human Trafficking Legal Center for hosting it. So I don't know, I would like to say briefly that Survivor Alliance is a survivors lead organization. It's a network that have members in about 20 countries. And basically we try to empower and unite the survivors around the world, providing professional advice and professional development opportunities, as well as a large network of survivors. Thank you very much, everyone, to be here. And that's it for my end. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Maria. So
this one basically is talking about the necessity of survivor leadership, which we know that is very much needed, y'all know. So let me stop this for a minute. Let me go back, refresh this. I want to see what else, what other movies are here, some videos, because that's over an hour long. I'll show y'all the other videos that are available. Give me some credit and economic choices for survivors of human trafficking. Advocating for trafficking survivors facing tax controversies. A survivor guide to criminal expungement and vacator in the United States. A survivor's guide to survivor inclusion in the workplace. Human trafficking survivors and criminal record relief, the Survivor Reentry Project. A survivor's guide to navigate the workplace. Introduction to Annie Cannon's training survivors to be software engineers and entrepreneurs. Racism and the anti-trafficking movement. A survivor's guide to free from and financial wellness. Access to banking for survivors. I want to check something out. Let's see. It's very, like some people that's trafficked, so they might end up getting arrested for prostitution but this right here, this criminal.
Okay, everybody, welcome to this webinar with the Human Trafficking Legal Center and the Freedom Network. We're going to give people a couple of minutes to come in and to join us.
Okay. We currently have 80 members, a combination of organizations and individuals, and we work to advance a human rights-based approach to addressing human trafficking throughout the U.S. So we provide training and technical assistance to the field, and we also do federal advocacy work to help improve policies and legislation for human trafficking survivors.
Terrific. Thank you, Amanda. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to hand this off to Jessica, who will put up her slides. If you have questions during the webinar, please feel free to either put your question in the Q&A box or...
So I wanted to show y'all the different things so that when y'all could come back over here to this link and see the different stuff. I think it's very important. Seems to be a lot that goes unaddressed for a prolonged period of time because someone finally decides to stand up and actually do something about it, as we're doing now. You help. Now you help bring awareness. Yeah, that's what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be using what happened to us, and even if it didn't happen to us, we need to stand up and help others, right? So this is right here. I'm just giving y'all a rundown on some of the things. So this is some of the publications using civil litigation to combat human trafficking 2024 data update. So it's a booklet that you could download at this link. Like I said, it's at HT for Human Trafficking legalcenter.org. So you go there and it's under publications. Using civil litigation to combat human trafficking, 20 years of civil litigation under the Trafficking Victims Protection Reauthorization Act. Child sexual exploitation and travel and tourism, a guide to extraterritorial jurisdiction to hold perpetrators accountable in Switzerland. Global justice using strategic litigation to combat forced labor. Federal human trafficking civil litigation 2021 data update. Medical fact sheet, human trafficking and healthcare providers. Okay, child sexual exploitation and travel and tourism, a guide for extraterritorial jurisdiction to hold perpetrators accountable in France. I'm liking this website. There's so much information in here. What y'all think about this website so far? So the next thing, let's go to amicus. Now this is amicus briefs. This is resource library. Says that the Human Trafficking Legal Center, represented pro bono by John Burton Law, filed an amicus brief in support of a group of Cambodian migrant workers. The workers brought a federal civil case alleging that they were held in forced labor in Thai shrimp processing factories. The district court dismissed the case, a decision that was affirmed by a 3-judge panel of the Ninth Court of Appeals. In response, the Cambodian migrant workers filed a petition for rehearsing by the full appellate court en banc. The Human Trafficking Legal Center's amicus brief urged the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals to grant the petition for rehearsing, detailing the significant impact that the court's prior ruling could have on survivors seeking justice under the Trafficking Victims Protection Reauthorization Act. So let's go on down the page a little bit. So there's the amicus brief urging the Supreme Court to uphold Second Circuit's decision in RICO case. The Human Trafficking Legal Center, represented pro bono by Kasowitz, Benson, Torres, LLP, filed an amicus brief in the U.S. Supreme Court to protect trafficking survivors' ability to recover in RICO cases. The case before the Supreme Court concerned whether a plaintiff is prohibited from suing under RICO for injuries to business or property simply because the injuries flow from or are derivative of a personal injury. The Human Trafficking Legal Center's amicus brief highlighted the potential impact of the court's decision on human trafficking cases. A decision denying plaintiffs a remedy under RICO could have the unfortunate effect of immunizing the most egregious perpetrators from liability. See, it's also got the documentation. So here is Vital v. Advanced Care Staffing amicus brief submitted to the Second Court. The Human Trafficking Legal Center, Legal Aid Society, and Alton and Golden LLP filed an amicus brief on behalf of 13 human and labor rights organizations in support of the plaintiff, a nurse from the Philippines, The plaintiff alleged he was coerced into signing a bait and switch contract that contained a forced arbitration clause. The nurse left his employment, fearing that he would lose his nursing license given the dangerous working conditions. After his departure, the defendant filed suit against him for damages in excess of $20,000 and forced the plaintiff into arbitration proceedings. The amicus brief urged the Second Circuit to uphold the district court's decision, which had enjoined the arbitration proceedings and recognized that the plaintiff was likely to succeed in establishing that the arbitration clause violated the Trafficking Victims Protection Reauthorization Act. The Second Circuit upheld the district court's ruling and remanded the case for further proceedings on the merits. Then there's Americans brief urging the Ninth Court to reverse dismissal of forced labor case. The Human Trafficking Legal Center and Aaron Haligua, PLLC, filed an amicus brief on behalf of 6 members of Congress in support of the plaintiffs, a group of Cambodian migrant workers who alleged that they were held in forced labor and Thai shrimp processing factories. We had their case earlier, and now this is actually 6 members of Congress who supports these plaintiffs that we had read earlier. Okay, so let's go over here to CTSA and others versus United States of America, amicus brief submitted to the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights. So let's go where the Human Trafficking Legal Center, represented by pro bono counsel, Decherd LLP, filed an amicus brief in support of the petitioners in domestic worker trafficking case pending before the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights. The brief argues that the United States has failed to take all possible measures to prevent trafficking of domestic workers by diplomats under the A3 G5 visa program and has failed to hold diplomatic traffickers accountable. The Center's amicus brief advocates for 3 policy changes to prevent these abuses and to provide adequate remedies for domestic workers. The United States must make A3G5 visas portable from employer to employer. The United States must prosecute more forced labor cases, particularly forced labor perpetuated by diplomats, and the United States should follow the lead of the United Kingdom Supreme Court and reinterpret the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations to preclude diplomatic immunity as a defense to civil claims for human trafficking. Okay, then it's got the amicus brief urging the Supreme Court to hear nurses' civil rights lawsuit. I think this is still about that nurse. Okay, let's see. Freedom Network and the Human Trafficking Legal Center filed an amicus brief to the Supreme Court of the United States in support of a group of Filipino nurses who brought a civil rights lawsuit against New York prosecutors. The nurses filed this action after they were wrongly arrested and charged for simply quitting their jobs after alleging they were abused by their employer. Authorities in New York also prosecuted the nurses' attorney. A New York appellate court found that the prosecution of the nurses violated the 13th Amendment to the Constitution, which prohibits involuntary servitude. The amicus brief urges the Supreme Court to hear the case, arguing that the Second Circuit Court of Appeals finding of absolute immunity sends a troubling message. Abuse of legal process, a typical tactic employed by human traffickers, work. So this one is amicus brief urging the Supreme Court to hear forced labor case. Like I said, this goes on and on. There's a lot of different cases here. Like Kalakdian versus Indy Nigeria et al. Amicus brief submitted to Fifth Court. It's where the Filipino worker forced into labor in a Louisiana shipyard. So y'all are say, oh, yeah, being trafficked outside the United States, but y'all don't know how many people are actually trafficked here in the United States from another country. So Doe versus Apple, amicus brief submitted. Let's see what this is. The Human Trafficking Legal Center and Cohen Milstein Sellers and Toll LLP filed an amicus brief on behalf of 12 legal scholars in support of the plaintiffs. The plaintiffs alleged that they were trafficked as children into forced labor in cobalt mines in the Democratic Republic of Congo. The amicus brief on behalf of the legal scholars asked the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals to reverse the district court's incorrect holding that extraterritorial jurisdiction does not cover such cases. This erroneous dicta in the court's decision made this the first federal court to hold that the extraterritorial jurisdiction provided in the Trafficking Victims Protection Reauthorization Act does not extend to civil actions. So let's go. It goes on and on and on. Okay. I just want to show y'all that. So let's go to the next one. Next thing that goes on. All right. Who's still with me? Sorry, I'm having trouble seeing a little bit. Sorry. I think this is interesting right here where it's got this is 20 ways you can help fight human trafficking. Anyone can join in the fight against human trafficking. Here are 20 ideas to consider. 1. Learn the indicators of human trafficking on the TIP office's website or by taking a training. Human trafficking awareness training is available for individuals, businesses, first responders, law enforcement educators, and federal employees, among others. If you are in the United States and believe someone may be a victim of human trafficking, call the 24-hour National Human Trafficking Hotline at 1-888-373-7888 or report an emergency to law enforcement by calling 911. Trafficking victims, whether or not U.S. citizens, are eligible for services and immigration assistance. 3. Be a conscientious and informed consumer. Find out more about who may have picked your tomatoes or made your clothes. Responsible Sourcing Tool.org. Or check out the Department of Labor's list of goods produced by child labor or forced labor. Encourage companies to take steps to prevent human trafficking in their supply chains and publish the information, including supplier or factory lists, for consumer awareness. For volunteers, support anti-trafficking efforts in your community. 5. Meet with and or write to your local, state, and federal elected officials to let them know you care about combating human trafficking and ask what they are doing to address it. 6. Be well informed. Set up a web alert to receive current human trafficking news. Also, check out CNN's Freedom Project for more stories on the different forms of human trafficking around the world. 7. Host an awareness raising event to watch and discuss films about human trafficking. For example, learn how human trafficking exists today. Watch an investigative documentary about sex trafficking, or discover how forced labor can affect global food supply chains. Alternatively, contact your local library and ask for assistance identifying an appropriate book and ask them to host the event. 8. Organize a fundraiser and donate the proceeds to an anti-trafficking organization. 9. Encourage your local schools or school districts to include human trafficking in their curricula and to develop protocols for identifying and reporting suspected case of human trafficking or responding to a potential victim. 10. Use your social media platforms to raise awareness about human trafficking using the following hashtags: end trafficking or hashtag freedom first. 11. Think about whether your workplace is trauma informed and reach out to management or the human resources team to urge implementation of, of trauma informed business practices. 12. Become a mentor to a young person or someone in need. Traffickers often target people who are going through a difficult time or who lack strong support systems. As a mentor, you can be involved in new and positive experiences in that person's life during a formative time. 13. Parents and caregivers learn how human traffickers often target and recruit youth and who to turn to for help in potentially dangerous situations. Host community conversations with parent teacher associations, law enforcement, schools, and community members regarding safeguarding children in your community. 14. Youth. Learn how to recognize traffickers' recruitment tactics, how to safely navigate out of a suspicious or uncomfortable situations, and how to reach out for help at any time. 15. Faith-based and neighborhood partnerships. Host awareness events and community forums with anti-trafficking leaders or collectively support a local victim service provider. 16. Businesses provide jobs, internships, skill training, and other opportunities to trafficking survivors. Take steps to investigate and prevent trafficking in your supply chains by consulting the responsible sourcing tool and supply chain to develop effective management systems to detect, prevent, and combat human trafficking. 17. College students take action. On your campus, join or establish a university club to raise awareness about human trafficking and initiate action throughout your local community. Consider doing one of your research papers on a topic concerning human trafficking. Request that human trafficking be included in university curricula. 18. Healthcare providers learn how to identify the indicators of human trafficking and assist victims. With assistance from local anti-trafficking organizations, extend low-cost or free system services to human trafficking victims. Resources from the Department of Health and Human Services can be found on their website. 19. Journalists. The media plays an enormous role in shaping perceptions and guiding the public conversation about human trafficking. Seek out some media best practices on how to effectively and responsibly report stories on human trafficking. 20. Attorneys offer human trafficking victims legal services, including support for those seeking benefits or special immigration status. Resources are available for attorneys representing victims of human trafficking. See if y'all can see this over here. Can y'all see the screen okay? Let's see. Hey there, how you doing? I'm glad you're still here. Okay, I'm trying to see the screen here on my phone. I don't think I went ahead and shared that, so let me unshare and go back. Get that one off right there. Go back to. So I can't really see whether y'all see that or not. You can? Oh, you did? I'm glad you're still here too, Carlene. So let's go back to share the screen. Okay. Here we go. I think this is the one. The FBI's Safe Online Surfing SOS program teaches students in grade 3 to 5 3 to 8, sorry, how to navigate the web safely. The age appropriate lessons and games cover topics like cyberbullying, protecting personal information, recognizing trustworthy and untrustworthy sites, and avoiding malware. The program is available in English or Spanish. Anyone can complete the activities in the FBI SOS website. The testing and competition, however, are only open to students in grades 3 to 8 whose teachers have registered their public, private, or home schools through the SOS website. Let's see if this was played for us. Let me see. Get it bigger. Bigger. The online world is full of FBI created the Safe Online Surfing SOS Internet Challenge to help protect young people from these dangers. The interactive game students in grades 3 to 8 how to safely and responsibly use the internet and other digital technologies. Anyone can complete the activities on the SOS website, but sign up and register their schools to take part in the testing competition. An estimated 1.6 million students uh, cumulatively, that's right, are more at sos.fbi.gov. Just see the website here, sos.fbi.gov. So it said decoding the cyber threat. Let's see what that's about. Do y'all want to continue watching this or not? Let me know. Okay. Right. Let's get that one out of the way. Since that was messing up, it was not showing y'all. I'm sorry about that. Let's get that one out of the way. Since that was messing up, it was not showing y'all. I'm sorry about that. Let's get that one out of the way. Since that was messing up. Let me turn off that. Okay, there we go. Let's go to the next one. I'm sorry. It's like, all right. So y'all couldn't see that when I was playing. So make sure when your consideration of goods, okay, the types of list when it's human trafficking. It says right here, the advancing supply chain traceability through innovative research and projects. Traceability systems that track goods at every step in the supply chain are essential to global supply chain management. However, many corporate supply chains lack clear mapping and traceability, concealing the origins of raw materials and leaving workers vulnerable to exploitation. Our lab's supply chain research and projects are addressing these issues by building evidence on labor abuses in complex supply chains and expanding traceability tools to identify and prevent child labor and forced labor. ILAB has funded $4 million project, $4 million projects to increase the downstream tracing of goods made by child labor and forced labor. Supply chain tracing and engagement methodology streams of a breach. There's a lot more to go here. This boy right here, Kevin. Let's see, Kevin, trying to get it where it go bigger. Sorry, I gotta make this maximize the screen a little bit. Get it. Kevin Matinda, age 7, breaks rocks with a hammer along with his older sisters and mother, Mikhail Corey, in Nairobi, Kenya. Kevin's mother says she was left without a choice after she lost her cleaning job at a private school when pandemic restrictions were imposed. Nairobi, Kenya, September 29, 2020. As we stand at this critical conjuncture, there's also additions in the list. Okay, look at here. It says goods produced by child labor force. In the country area Belarus, the forced labor, furniture and lumber in Belarus. Bolivia, cattle, coca, stimulant plant, and lead is child labor. Burma is fish and garments. That's forced labor. Central African Republic, this is child labor, gold. In Chad, forced labor, gold. In China, forced labor, aluminum, caustic soda, jujubes, metallurgical grade silicon, polyvinyl chloride, and squid. Democratic Republic of the Congo, forced labor, cobalt ore, heterogeneous, heterogeneous. In India, child labor, recovered metals, electronic waste, forced labor, shrimp, and sugarcane. Indonesia, forced labor, nickel. Kenya, child labor, stones. Mauritius, forced labor, garments. Tanzania, child labor, cattle, rice, and stones. Let's see what goes on here now. It's like 2024 list of goods produced. Then there's Venezuela, child labor, gold. Zambia, child labor, copper ore, heterogenite, manganese. Zimbabwe, child labor, lithium. Table 2, goods made with inputs produced with child labor or forced labor. China, forced labor, auto parts and components, aluminum. Input good, China, aluminum. China, on forced labor, child labor, electrolyte, copper products, lithium ion batteries, input good, Democratic Republic of the Congo, copper ore. In China, the forced labor, garments, cotton, textile, cotton, thread, yarn, cotton. Input good, China, cotton. Could I don't know how to say that now. Cote d'Ivoire, child labor, chocolate, cocoa butter, cocoa paste, cocoa powder. The third thing is Cote d'Ivoire cocoa. Okay, Democratic Republic of the Congo, child labor, copper products. Dominican Republic, forced labor, bagasse, purple molasses, raw sugar, refined sugar, and rum. Ghana, child labor, chocolate, cocoa butter, cocoa paste, cocoa powder. India, child labor, cooking oil, palm oil blends. Forced labor, cooking oil, palm oil blends. Malawi, child labor, cigarettes, tobacco. Forced labor, cigarettes, tobacco. Malaysia, child labor, biofuel, palm, cooking oil, palm oil blends, crude palm, kernel oil, crude palm oil, oleochemicals, refined palm, kernel oil, refined palm oil. And there is the forced labor, biofuel, cooking oil, crude palm kernel oil, crude palm oil, oleochemicals, refined palm kernel oil, refined palm. Netherlands, child labor, chocolate, cocoa butter, cocoa paste, cocoa powder. Philippines, child labor, coconut oil, copra meal. Russia, cigarettes. That's the child labor and forced labor, cigarettes, tobacco. So in South Korea, the child labor, India, in Thailand, forced labor, animal feed, fish oil, fish meal. Ukraine, child labor, cigarettes, tobacco. Forced labor, cigarettes, tobacco. Vietnam, forced labor, garments, cotton. Then it's got the 2024 TVPRA list by country. Afghanistan, child labor, bricks, carpets, coal, poppies, and salt. Forced labor is bricks. Forced child labor, bricks. Angola, it's diamonds. That's in child labor, forced labor, diamonds. Argentina, child labor, bricks, cotton, garlic, garments, grapes, olives, strawberries, tobacco, tomatoes, yerba mate, which is a stimulant plant, forced labor, garments, and child forced labor, garments. You see that? So what's this list over here? That's downstream, okay. So Azerbaijan, child labor, cotton. Bangladesh, child labor, business hand rolled cigarettes, bricks, dried fish, footwear, furniture, steel, garments, glass, jute, textile, leather, matches, poultry, salt, shrimp, soap, and textiles. Forced labor, dried fish garments. Child forced labor is dried fish. Belarus, forced labor, furniture, lumber. Belize, child labor, bananas, citrus fruits, sugarcane. Benin, child labor, cotton, granite, crushed. Forced labor, cotton. Child forced labor, cotton. Bolivia, child labor, Brazil nuts, chestnuts, bricks, cattle, cocoa, a coca, stimulant plant, corn, gold, lead, silver, sugarcane, tin, and zinc. Forced labor, Brazil nuts, chestnuts, cattle, corn, peanuts, and sugarcane. Child forced labor, Brazil nuts, chestnuts, and sugarcane. So then there's Brazil. Look at all these in Brazil for the child labor. Okay, berries, bananas, beef, bricks, cashews, cattle, ceramics, charcoal, cocoa, coffee, corn, cotton, fish, footwear, hogs, manioc, cassava, pineapples, poultry, rice, sheep, sizzle, sugarcane, tobacco. Forced labor, cattle, charcoal, coffee, garments, sugarcane, and timber. Burkina Faso, which is child labor, cotton, gold, and granite. Forced labor, cotton, and gold. Forced labor, cotton, and gold. Y'all could go on and on about all these different things. This is really interesting to see how bad they got it. I'm going to see if there's Egypt and all that. So child labor is bricks, cotton, stones, limestones. Look at all this whole list of this, you know. Look at the child labor. This is forced labor here, and child forced labor right here. It's bricks, carpets, that's forced labor, cottonseed, hybrid, embellished textile, garments, rice, sandstone, shrimp, stone, sugarcane, tea, thread, yarn. And the child forced labor is bricks, cottonseed, hybrid, embellished textiles, garments, rice, and stones. The list goes on and on. Do y'all see how bad of a problem this is? Y'all don't see how bad a problem this is, okay? This is not just human trafficking. It's not just about sexual, okay? There's a lot more to trafficking than just this, okay? Just want to let y'all know that. So let's go to something else now. Sorry, I'm having trouble a little bit with my eyes. Let's see what this is. So this was introduced to the House. It's a Trafficking Survivors Relief Act of 2025. This bill establishes a process to vacate convictions and expunge arrest records to certain criminal offenses committed by victims of human trafficking that directly result from or relate to having been a trafficking victim. It defines the offenses eligible to be vacated or expunged and sets forth procedures for filing a motion. The Government Accountability Office must assess the impact of this process, including the number of human trafficking survivors who file motions to vacate convictions or expunge records. The bill permits certain grants for legal representation to be used to seek post-conviction relief. Finally, the bill allows a defendant to establish that the offenses were committed under duress but demonstrate that he or she was a victim of human trafficking at the time of the offense. So let's go further over here. So let me get past over here. See. I might have to show y'all a link to something since it's not wanting. And here's another thing which says a removal of goods. Consideration. So removal of goods process for the list of goods. So, sometimes we might not want the fact about a child having to be labor or anything that's forced labor, right? Trying to get it bigger right here still, sorry. So the Trafficking Victims Protection Reauthorization Act right here. U.S. Congress mandates that ILAB produces a list of goods produced by child labor or forced labor list of goods, including goods produced with inputs produced for forced labor or child labor. Then there's a process here, if you can see that. Factor 1, and significant reduction in child labor, forced labor. There's different factors here in this chart. So we really need to pay attention. We need to set up for our kids, right? So let me go over here to let's see. I'm sorry about everything that's been going on with this messing up when I tried to play the audios a minute ago. Say we accept it. Now, RAIN, this is what I was telling y'all earlier, that this is a very good website as well. Helping healing. Learn about RAIN, our mission, our work, our impact. RAIN is the nation's largest anti-sexual violence organization and operator of the National Sexual Assault Hotline. So sometime we'll go back over this, but y'all know I just wanted a rundown of that one site basically at the moment. We'll have to go over some of the other things as well. Does anybody have any type of questions with what we did go over? Would anybody like to come online? I'm going to go ahead and give an opportunity if anybody did. We know there's a lot of different types of trafficking, okay? Look up. I don't want AI. Thank you very much. What are the 5 P's of trafficking? Prevention, protection, prosecution, and partnership. That's good to know, though, right? You get this right here. Get over here. Giving anybody an opportunity if they want to get up. Let's discuss whatever you want to discuss. We'll do our best. I can't believe it don't want to go like this and what I've got over here. Here we go. It's going to do it now. Thank you. Finally, huh? Dad, tip. There we go. So this is Trafficking in Persons 101. I got a touch screen and I keep forgetting instead of going to the buttons right here to maximize it. What is trafficking in persons? Trafficking in persons, also called human trafficking, is a crime of human rights abuse. The 3 most common forms of trafficking in persons. Tip that Department of Defense personnel may encounter are sex trafficking, labor trafficking, also called forced labor, and child soldiering. Have y'all heard of that, the child soldiering? The Trafficking Victims Protection Act of 2000 defines severe forms of trafficking in persons in 22 USC, sub 101, as A, sex trafficking in which a commercial sex act is induced by force, fraud, or coercion, or in which a person induced to perform such act has not attained 18 years of age, or B, the recruitment, harboring, transportation, provision, or obtaining of a person for labor or services using force, fraud, or coercion for the purpose of subjection to involuntary servitude, peonage, debt bondage, or slavery. Sex trafficking means the recruitment, harboring, transportation, provision, obtaining, patronizing, or soliciting of a person for the purpose of a commercial sex act. The term commercial sex act means any sex act on account of which anything of value is given to or received by any person. Okay. Labor trafficking includes involuntary servitude, peonage, debt bondage, and slavery. The term child soldier is defined in the Child Soldiers Prevention Act of 2008 as any person under 18 years of age who takes direct part in hostilities as a member of governmental, armed forces, police, or other security forces. Any person under 18 years of age who has been compulsorily recruited into governmental, armed forces, police, or other security forces. Okay, any person under 15 years of age who has been voluntarily recruited into governmental, armed forces, police, or other security forces, which means that they should not be put in there when they're like 15 years old, even if they go voluntarily, okay? Then any person under 18 years who has been recruited or used in hostilities by armed forces distinct from the armed forces of a state. Child soldiers are forced to fight, but also used as cooks, porters, messengers, medics, guards, spies, and sex slaves. I didn't know that about it being sex slaves right here. So, how trafficking in persons occurs: the actions is recruiting, harboring, transporting, providing, obtaining, patronizing, soliciting, or advertising a person for sex trafficking only. Okay, for sex trafficking only, this is the advertising of a person. That's where that fits in. And that's for the, under this part, advertising a person for sex trafficking only. Means through force, fraud, coercion. Minors induced into commercial sex act are tip victims regardless of force, fraud, or coercion. For purpose of forced labor, involuntary servitude, debt bondage, slavery, commercial sex. We'll go on further down. Force, fraud, and coercion. Traffickers use force, fraud, and coercion to compel victims to perform labor or services or commercial sex acts. Here are some examples of force, fraud, and coercion drawn from actual cases. Please note these examples do not comprise an all-inclusive list, okay? So yours might be a little bit different, you know what I'm saying? So whatever, it might be a little bit different, but it still could be force, okay? So physical assault such as being hit, kicked, punched, stabbed, strangled, burned, shot, or raped. Confinement such as being locked in a room or closet, handcuffed, tied up, bound, or otherwise physically prevented from moving or leaving a situation. Drugging a person to incapacitate him or her. Now there's fraud. False promises of a better job, good pay, new life in the U.S., better circumstances for one's family. Use of fraudulent travel documents such as passports and visas. False advertising. Now let's go down to the physical coercion. Putting a gun to someone's head. Holding a person at knife point. Threatening to hit or hurt someone. Even to kids, their pets, right? Psychological coercion. Threats or intimidation against a victim or victim's family, including threats to physically harm a loved one. Blackmail, such as threatening to release nude photos of a person. Threats of deportation or sending someone to jail. Showing a person a dead body and intimidating that if the person doesn't cooperate, he or she will end up the same way. Where are victims of human trafficking found? Victims of sex trafficking can be found anywhere, but are often found in bars and brothels, dance clubs and strip clubs, massage parlors and spas, escort services, private parties, pornography industry, on the internet. In the Department of Defense, labor trafficking has occurred in contracts that cover labor-intensive industries such as food services, janitorial and disposal services, truck and driver services, security guards, and construction work. Who are the victims? Victims can be any sex, age, race, nationality, social status, economic background, or immigration status. So it don't matter whether the person's family is rich, poor, whatever. It can happen if the family's got money or if the family don't have money, regardless. It can happen to a male or female. It can happen to an adult or a child. It can happen to foreign national or U.S. citizens. It happened to homeless youth, undocumented migrants, people displaced by civil conflicts and natural disasters, service members, Department of Defense civilians, Department of Defense contractor employees, and Department of Defense family members. Who are the traffickers? Traffickers can be members of organized crime groups. They can be terrorist organizations. They can be gangs and warlords. They can be foreign national or U.S. citizens. They can be male or female. They can be pimps, business owners, family members, service members, Department of Defense civilians, Department of Defense contractors, and Department of Defense family members. Trying to get that on up. It's taking a while. Vulnerability associated with TIP. Traffickers prey on victims with little or no social safety net. They look to exploit victims for cheap labor by preying on individuals in vulnerable situations due to economic hardship, illegal immigration status, political instability, natural disasters, and other causes. Traffickers also exploit people who are vulnerable because of their age. It is important to note that legal migrants can also be vulnerable to trafficking. Vulnerabilities associated with trafficking victims include poverty or economic hardship, political instability or armed conflict, natural disasters, childhood abuse or neglect, children in the foster care and juvenile justice systems, runaway and homeless youth, victims of violence, migrant workers, undocumented immigrants, racial, ethnic, and other minorities, physical or cognitive disabilities, history of substance abuse. Indicators of TIP. Be alert for signs that may indicate trafficking in person is taking place and follow the appropriate procedures for reporting this type of incident. Please note the following list is not all inclusive. So the physical, environmental indicators, signs of physical abuse, the bruises, cuts, and or broken bones, serious communicable diseases, injuries from violence or hazardous work conditions, no ID, a passport, and or papers, escorted or closely monitored at all times, someone speaks to them for them, and debt bondage to employer, live or work in unsafe conditions, live at or are confined to the work site, exposure to toxic or hazardous materials, evidence of a sexually explicit online advertisement, especially of minors. Psychological behavioral indicators: fearful, submissive, anxious, angry, aggressive, antagonistic, or defensive, depressed, substance abuse, dependent on others, unsure where they are. What can I do? Some things you can do to combat trafficking in persons. Learn the signs and the indicators of trafficking in person. Y'all know that help me sign that y'all do with your thumb. You make like the number 4 in your hand, then you close down your fingers over that, and that's a help me sign. It looks like a fist. Learn the signs and indicators of trafficking in person. Stay informed. CTIP PMO has a website, newsletter, and resources to learn more about combating TIP and Department of Defense. The website there is C as in Charlie, TIP.defense.gov. Don't engage in prohibited activities. Follow, yeah, there's going to be a lot of people that says, oh, yeah, you're too scared, you chicken, you don't do nothing, you want to somebody wants to try to get you thinking that nobody will care about you, nobody's going to be your friend if you don't do it. So that's how a lot of people fall back on that too as well. Follow your command, agency reporting procedures. Report all suspected abuses through your chain of command or inspector general. Where can I report TIP incidents? Report anything suspicious that you see to your chain of command. You can report incidents to your local DOD IG office through the DOD IG hotline at 1-800-424-9098 or visit the website. In the U.S., National Human Trafficking Hotline is 1-888-373-7888. Report and avoid any establishments of persons that you believe may be involved in TIP. Never act alone. You may want to help, but trafficking situations are dangerous. There could be somebody around that you don't know that's involved in it too, that's keeping a watch, and you might end up hurt or killed yourself. So be very careful, please. For more information on the Department of Defense Combating Trafficking and Persons Program, go to, y'all see the link right here, https://ctip.defense.gov. So going down and see, that's about it for this one right here. Well, I thank everybody for coming, and I hope that I had shed some light on some of this stuff. I hope that y'all are doing well, and I say God bless y'all. And remember to speak up. This is Human Trafficking Month, okay, in January. I happened to see that the other day. Thank you so much, and God bless y'all.